Hello, welcome to WISE Seattle's virtual May event. While we all wish that we are all together right now for this event, we are happy that you are able to log on today from the comfort of your own homes, and we look forward to the day when we can all be together again in a safe and healthy manner. To start us off, I just wanted to quickly introduce myself. My name is Zoe Yenser, and I work at the Seattle Mariners in the event sales department, as well as serve on the WISE Seattle Programming Committee. We are so excited to welcome Adam Bernero, our guest speaker today, but first I just have a few minutes of housekeeping notes. First off, we have some guests joining us today from other WISE chapters across the country, so I just wanted to give a quick hello and shout out to them. Thank you so much for joining us today. Secondly, I wanted to share that our next event is going to be on June 9th, so mark your calendars, with the Olympic volleyball player Courtney Thompson, who will be speaking on our relationship with stress and challenges in times of chaos. We'll get that save the date out this week, so you'll just want to keep an eye out in your email or on our social media channels. Next, if you have any technical difficulties, which we know happens, we're all quickly aligning and adjusting ourselves to this virtual world. Our WISE committee and board members are monitoring our WISE email and our social media channels, so just reach out there if you have any issues with us, if you need to resend the link or send a link to one of your friends or family members. Next, you'll also notice there's a Q&A at the bottom of your screen, so please use this box for any questions you have for Adam, and we will address as many as we can toward the second half of the event. Lastly, if you're not a member of WISE and are interested in joining, we would love to tell you more about this incredible group of women. Check out wiseseattle.org for some more information on joining, or you can just let us know in the Q&A box if you're interested, and we'll organize a time to speak with you separately. So just wanted to give you guys a little bit of background on tonight's event. We actually originally had a different topic planned for May a few months ago, but as things progressed with the world with COVID-19, we felt we really wanted to respond to the increase of anxiety and of fear that we're all feeling today. I know for many of us, myself included, we're struggling with something, whether that be to make ends meet, struggling with kids at home, balancing kids at home while working from home, struggling with fear and anxiety of the future, struggling to work from home and stay motivated and stick to a schedule. I know I'm dealing with that. Or struggling to find work at all. I know a lot of us are dealing with furloughs and layoffs, and it's a very unsettling time. I know also a lot of us, we work in sports and events, and this has changed drastically for us that in ways that we never really imagined. So the WISE Seattle board wants to make sure that we all stay as connected as possible during this time and share any tidbit of positivity or support that we possibly can with one another to remind us that nobody is in this alone and we're feeling this way all together. So that is why we invited Adam to speak today. Adam Bernero is a former MLB pitcher who has pitched for the Detroit Tigers, the Colorado Rockies, the Atlanta Braves, the Philadelphia Phillies, and the Kansas City Royals. He is now the Seattle Mariners mental performance coach and has shared some advice with the Mariners front office a few weeks ago regarding how to cope during the time of coronavirus. And I know that that's been very helpful for me in dealing with anxiety at this time, and we hope that it's helpful for you all as well. So Adam, welcome, and thank you so much for being here today. Thank you. First off, Adam, if you wouldn't mind just giving your background in the MLB and your path out of the MLB and how you came to being the Mariners mental performance coach. If you could give an overview of that, that would be fantastic.
Yeah, it was sort of a long, winding road, to be honest. Yeah, I went to college, and it was sort of a struggle for me I never even actually played in college, which is strange. And until my last year, and I had a coach that really just believed in me and helped me with the belief system for myself that I could actually play and accomplish some of my dreams. And it sort of happened quickly after that. I signed with the Tigers, and on a Denny's napkin was my first contract, actually. the scout didn't have like the contract or binding agreement, and we were at Denny's for our last game in college, and he said, "Hey, I can just write the binding agreement on this napkin and you can become a Tiger." And I was like, okay, sure, sounds good to me. So I did that, and then I made it pretty quickly. Actually, it was a year after that I was in the big leagues, unbelievably, right? Like I just it just happened to be like all these situations presented themselves to where I kept taking advantage of the situation. Like guys were getting hurt, I was pitching at the right time, and I got there. And then I quickly realized that getting there is the easy part. It was staying there that's really hard, and I didn't really have the skills to stay there for a long period of time, or the time that I wanted to be there for. So I found myself bouncing around a lot, and yeah, it seems like a lifetime ago now that I was actually playing, but my career ended in 2009, and it's taken a much different path since then.
Great. Thank you for that background. So I know now you work with the Mariners on mental skills, and could you tell us a little bit more about what that looks like, and what sort of skills do you coach the team on? What have you found them to be the most helpful for the team, and how can people who aren't athletes, like myself, apply these skills in our day-to-day life?
Yeah, so it's been really interesting for me to, like, I just love people's minds, you know. It's just so interesting what people come up with, especially young men trying to accomplish their dreams. And you know, a lot of guys just want to pull themselves up by the bootstraps and out physical everything, and they quickly realize that it's more than just being the hardest worker or the most physically dominant person. It's always the person that has the most awareness, people that can access the present moment, understand what their purpose is and what they stand for. And so a lot of the time it's really getting people to understand those qualities about themselves before they can really get into you know, understanding themselves first, like through that awareness, like what are the questions they're really trying to answer. You know, a lot of guys don't really know. They'll ask the question, but that's not really the question they want to know the answer to. It's typically you have to, you know, hey, what do you really want here? Like, what's really going on? Because it's not just about, you know, sometimes it is about just getting one hit tonight. Sometimes, you know, when guys are struggling, but that, like I said, it's not sustainable, and guys ultimately want to have a sustainable long career. And so I think the first piece is having that awareness, which is really difficult for 20-year-old men. It's really hard. But I think sports in particular teaches that, whether you like it or not. There's a saying in baseball, if you haven't been humbled, you're about to be. And I think that's true with really anybody in life that has the, you know, those people that, you know, they're like, wow, that person has just really got it together, you know. They've been humbled in some way, and they've done a lot of introspection and kind of answered those questions of what their purpose is, what's their intention with life, and what are their standards they hold themselves by. And so that's, I mean, there's a lot to it, right? We can go down so many different roads, but those are sort of like how we start with guys, and then it can get into the weeds after that.
Okay. Are there any specific practices that you work with the team on to bring them to that self-awareness, or is it more of a continued conversation that you have one-on-one with the guys? Is there any specific practice that you would recommend people work on to bring more self-awareness to their own lives?
Yeah. So accessing the present moment is really is really key.
Mhm.
I think there's a couple of ways to do that. You know, I feel old now because I meditate. And, you know, I didn't even know meditating was a thing until, 5 years ago, and how much of an impact that's changed my life. So that learning how to breathe correctly is
Mhm.
really impactful. So I've been teaching that quite a bit lately, and how we can get into, like, because there's so much stress within our lives, and for baseball players in sport, playing in front of so many people and all the money on the line and all that,
Mhm.
finding ways to get into that rest and digest part of our nervous system,
Mhm.
which you can do just by breathing correctly into our diaphragm. Like, that's so important. And a lot of people just don't breathe right. And it's
Mhm.
kind of a funny thing that I'm sure a lot of people here are going, like, breathing, come on, man, that's not, you know what I mean? But it's real. It has a real physiological response if you're able to breathe right. And when you look around, people are not breathing correctly. They're not using their diaphragm, this 10-pound muscle that we have in our body that no one even knows what it does, right? And it's there
Right.
for breathing. So learning how to use that correctly can really help with, I mean, I had to do it before this call
Mhm.
because I was quite nervous for this call. But, like, being able to get into that rest and digest, that parasympathetic of just being like, okay, yeah, all right, I'm here,
Right.
and getting oxygen to the extremities and into my brain so I can
Right.
think a little more clearly. And then meditation, I guess, would be the other really important one that
Okay.
I've really taken to and practice every day.
It's so interesting that you mentioned breathing. I was reading about that just the other day, because it's so funny how we are a culture where we're constantly, working toward the next thing, or we're trying to do as much as we can day to day, day in and day out, meet as many people, cross as much stuff off the to-do list as we can. And it's, such a go-getter society. And I think a lot of people on this call align themselves with that. And the fact that we have a hard time even knowing how to properly breathe, I think is really interesting, because that's the number one thing we need to do in the morning. What would you say? Because now, we're a culture that is being told to stop, stop moving and stop going after every tiny little thing. What would you say to someone who might be struggling right now to slow down, when we're wired to do so much as possible at all times?
Yeah. So, so this is a story, and I'm sorry, I'll hopefully tie this into what you just asked here. But what triggered in my brain when you just said that was an experience I just had recently on a silent retreat, a meditation retreat. And when I was there, there was this little note above the door handle going into the cafeteria. And of course, no one can talk, right?
Mhm.
And on this note, it said, "The pause that remembers." And, every time I'd open up the door, and it was right above the door handle, I'm like, for 5 days, I'm like, what does that mean? Like, I couldn't figure it out, right? And the last day, they have Dharma talks, and the teachers are there, and they're going through their talk, and they're like, "I bet you guys want to know what the pause that remembers means." And we're like, yes, definitely want to know what that means.
Yes.
And yeah, about time someone tells me. And it was so impactful, incredibly impactful for me, and I think about it all the time. And what it means is what you're going to on the other side of the door is not any more important than ultimately what's on this side of the door, because this is the only moment we have.
Mhm.
And the moment of turning the doorknob is just as important as what's going on that other side, right?
Mhm.
And I was just blown away at the simplicity of that, right? Like, we get so caught up in like what is gonna happen, like what we have to do, what we're supposed to do. And those things are real. I'm not saying those don't exist, right? Like we all have responsibilities and deadlines and things that we have to do. But when we live by those and never take a second to breathe and know that this moment is the only moment we actually have, you know, it gives a little more meaning to the things that you're actually doing when you're doing them, like the things that are on the other side of the door. Right. And yeah, and then the teacher told the story about how his grandma has dementia, and he takes her for a walk every day. And every day she looks around and she says the same thing every day. She says, "Look at all the beautiful trees." And she says it every single day. And wow. he wants to correct her, right? He always wants to correct her and say, you know, those trees have been there all the time. And this guy is a meditation dude, you know, like he's been doing this for 20 years teaching. And he's even trying to correct her and say, yeah, Mom, these trees have been here every day. Like, why do you even? But he knows that she's seeing them for the first time. Wow. And at that moment, I was in San Francisco, and my grandma has dementia, and I wasn't planning on seeing her. And I was like, oh my God, what am I doing? Like, I need to go see her. It doesn't matter that she probably won't remember any of it, right? Because what the teacher said is you know, we got to realize that this is how it is. This is the way it is now. And we so often try to get out of whatever is happening right now to something else, and finding the beauty in what's actually happening. And when I was talking, so I went and saw my grandma, obviously, after that talk. You know, she told, you know, everyone in the room 10 times that I was her only grandson with red hair. And I'm like, okay, yeah, like this is the way it is. You know, like this is how it is right now. And it really let me just settle into that moment and not try to like think past that moment, if you will. Right. So I don't know. I think that it's hard. I'm not saying like, I think we have to like really understand that our responsibilities in this moment right now is difficult. I'm not saying we have to acknowledge that but we can't give that power. We can't give that strength, you know. And if we can take a step back and understand that things are impermanent and things are the way they are right now, and that's just it, you know. Then I think we're able to see things with a little more clarity.
Right. Great. Thank you. That's a great story about your grandmother. I love that one. So thanks for sharing. When we spoke last week, you mentioned that having curiosity is one of the most important mindsets for people when the world feels so unsettled. Can you tell us a little bit more about why you think having curiosity is so crucial? And you also mentioned about creating space between moments and creating stillness. Can you explain what space between moments means, and how can we create that and seek that out when the world is so chaotic around us?
Yeah. So what I think I meant about that is creating space is you know, having the ability to step back from these moments that people see. In sports, I talk about like the home run that everyone sees and cheers for. Well, that home run didn't actually happen then. It happened in your mind before, because you had some sort of fear of not wanting to give up a home run or whatever. You weren't thinking about that positive thought or that thought that was your intention of, you know, usually, I mean, sometimes guys give up home runs on good pitches or whatever, but usually there's a lot of fear involved. And there's a great quote, I forget the guy's name right now, but He talks about, it says, curiosity will conquer fear more than bravery will. And it's just so impactful for me. And when I think about that, I think about how and this might take some imagination, but curiosity is more of an expansion of our hearts and our minds, and fear is more of a contraction of our hearts and our minds. I don't know. I can feel that when I say that, but it might. I don't know. I think it can mean something to you too. But yeah, and I think curiosity makes you a little more willing to proceed in the face of fear. And you know, a lot of what I'm saying is probably directly out of Brene Brown's books. You know, like like she is so
good source.
Yeah, I mean, that's who you want to like read about, or, you know, get some information from. She's incredible in how she talks a lot about curiosity and how that, you know, overcoming shame and fear and doubt, and whatever she says, I'm like all in on. So, but yeah, it's just like curiosity of what our edges are. What, like, I think we're just trying to find our personal edges of how good we can be and where those are, and to think that every day we wake up different, like physiologically different, because our brains are always changing, and when we make mistakes, our brains are like going, yes, like what's going on in here? Like we're changing, we're making new pathways, and so to know that we are changing literally every day, you know, because of neuroplasticity, and you can only do that through making mistakes and through curiosity and like trying to asking questions and being introspective, you know. And,
right.
Yeah.
Right. Okay. Well, I think it's a perfect time for us to all be looking into curiosity rather than bravery, and everyone being curious together, since there are so many unknowns. You know, the people we look to with that usually have all the answers don't at this time, and I think being curious is perfect for now, because there really isn't another option. But so thank you for sharing that. Another question I have for you is, you shared with the Mariners front office a few weeks ago something that spoke very much to me, and I know a few of my colleagues, your mental framework around what you call the 6 Ps. Can you share with us what those 6 Ps are and how you came to find those?
Yeah, so in school, there's different models of psychology. And the one that spoke to me most was this model called ACT. And it's now it used to be an acronym, acceptance commitment therapy, but now it's just ACT, because they didn't want it to be like, I actually don't know why. They just wanted it to be ACT. Because one of the action steps is taking action. So I think they wanted to sort of like imply that in the word. But anyway, so there's I was looking through that book, the ACT model book, and when I was going through that, I'm like, man, this is like perfect for what's happening right now. And I sort of spun it in a way of what I was thinking about the situation. And one of the tenets of ACT is being in the present moment. So that's one I immediately put down, because that is so valuable for our guys and anyone really. If you're able to access the present moment, that's, you know,
absolutely.
Yeah, it's just so valuable. Yeah, so present moment was one. Pure awareness was another one. I actually didn't fib to make that a P. It was called pure awareness in the book, and I was like, perfect. This is great. Like, you know, yeah. And so we can't be, you know, one of the things I wrote in there is we can't be present if we aren't aware of ourselves. And yeah, it's just like really, I don't think we take a lot of time to understand or like be aware of what we're sensing and feeling and thinking. You know, it's always really easy to go off on social media or something like that. So,
Right.
and we've talked about that already here a little bit. And one of the action steps that I really talk a lot with the players about is noticing what's happening around you without attaching a value to it. So, you know, we have hooks, these things that grab us, whether it's, you know, triggering us in some way, and knowing what those hooks are, and being aware of them, so then you can have a system for overcoming them.
Okay.
One of the other P's was philosophy, and understand. This one takes a lot of time. Understanding what you stand for and who you are, and I tell the guys, like, you need to know. It's kind of aggressive with them how I talk about it, but it's like, you know, if your life depended on it, like, would you be able to say what you stand for? And
good question.
To me, when and when I think about that, it's like, if you understand those values really well, if you understand what you stand for, then how big of a deal is it to throw you know, a fastball for a strike? You know, like that. You know, it's not that big of a deal all of a sudden if you stand for, you know, learning or integrity or honesty, and you're not throwing that ball with integrity, then, you know, there's a problem there.
Right.
And so I think those do play off of each other. And so really understanding what you stand for in less than 20 words.
Less than 20 words.
Okay. Yeah, because I mean, I wrote a ton, right? Like, I was like, oh yeah, I want to be like, you know, good family man, and like, I want to, you know, be in touch with nature. And I was just writing all this stuff, and I'm like, whoa, that's like, no way I could just say that if my life depended on it, right? Like, it has to be something that I'm like, this is me right now in any situation, no matter what. So yeah, and that took a lot of work for me, like years, to really understand. Perspective is one of our pillars with the guys. So yeah, it's like, and that goes back to the present moment too, is like knowing that, like, whatever we think is better somewhere else, well, what, you know, like, what about the thing that's happening right here?
Right.
And that goes back to, you know, what's on this side of the door is just as important what's on the other side of the door. And then permanence was another one of them. And I wrote next to it, nothing is. I kind of fibbed that one to make it a P, but the idea of impermanence. Yeah. The idea of impermanence, and everything is changing and shifting, whether we like it or not. And I really think, like, embracing what is happening, no matter what, if it's painful, like, what is it like? You know, what is it like to be in pain? What is it like to be really happy?
Absolutely.
What is it like to be neutral, like not feel anything? Like, just, you know, I mean, there's so many times where people are like, yeah, you know, you just seem like you're not like that happy today. I'm like, yeah, it's like the human experience, right? Like, some days there's nothing really going on. It's just the way it is right now. And I'm not like, everything's fine. I'm just not like, you know, just hanging out today. I don't know.
Definitely.
And so really getting in touch with those things and accepting them, because we so often want to move away from our emotions, or, you know, especially when it's painful, or sadness or whatever it is.
And I think that's so important now, you know, it's because everyone is dealing with such hard times. It's important to remember it's not permanent, but also to kind of sit in that and think about why you're feeling that way, and what the current situation is. So we'll definitely take
Yeah.
these present moment, pure awareness, philosophy, perspective, permanence or lack thereof. Definitely,
Well,
I think.
we can't forget the last one, party. You know, we gotta.
That's a very important one. Yes, absolutely.
Yeah,
Which we all could use some
we
of
gotta
these
enjoy the
times.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
I have a few questions for you from our audience. Thank you to those who have submitted questions. So this one from Anonymous, many people liked this one, so I'll go to this. How are you staying connected with the players remotely, and how are you encouraging them to stay motivated, positive, encouraged, and aware of the present moment? How can we keep our own teams motivated?
Yeah. Yeah. So the way I'm staying connected is just through here, Zoom calls, or team calls. It's just, you know, I have a coffee date every day with a player. And that's at 9 o'clock.
Mm-hmm.
I offer 10 o'clock meditations every day for whoever wants to join. And then I have group calls, and it's mostly to let the guys see each other and talk to each other. And there's varying degrees of what shelter in place looks like for some of these guys. You know,
Sure.
Some guys are really having a hard time. Some guys are out playing golf, you know, every day.
Wow.
Some guys haven't picked up a baseball since March. Some guys are throwing every day. So, you know, having those guys be able to see each other and talk to each other, I think gives them a lot of support for each other.
Mm-hmm.
And when I'm talking to someone individually, I never try to, I always make sure that I meet them where they are at. Like, I don't just jump in and just assume that everybody's doing as well as me or as well as the guy I just talked to. So really just being a good listener is the best thing that I've encountered with individual phone calls. And you know, if I sense something is going on with a player on a group call, I'll call them after, and it's about asking the right questions, and then just, you know, reflecting, summarizing, never never directing, and seeing where that path takes you, and maybe like we're able to give some sort of like nudge back in a direction that they want to go in. But it's hard. Like to answer that question, it's hard to instill positivity on other people, right? Like it's not like I wish I can wave that magic wand on people, and just be like, hey man, it's gonna be okay, you know. But people are perceiving things in the way that the only way they know how, right? And so being there for them with that and walking them through that mindset and just listening to them is often the best way, I think. I sorry, that sounds like a really crappy answer, but like I think the moment we start like telling people what to do, it just doesn't work.
Right. And I think we are all partners in this and are all, you know, everyone needs to kind of have that support system at this time. So I think listening is a great answer. I love that.
Yeah.
So, it actually kind of leads into the next question. You mentioned that it's hard to kind of, you know, tell someone how to be positive or to encourage them to be positive. Somebody asked that during COVID, many people wake up every morning and read several updates and news articles about the virus. How much of this is too much, and what are the ways we can stop the negative news from affecting our day-to-day activities? Does this translate to how the players stay present during a game?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, the way I've related this to the guys is if you go 0 for 3 games and you open up your social media every day and you see how terrible everyone thinks you are, really reflecting and seeing how important that is to your day. Like, is that really helping you?
Right.
is that helping you to go read every article when you type in your name? It's, you know, you can use it as fuel, or it can be debilitating, like it was for me. Like I read everything, and it was super impactful because I'm so emotional about, you know, I was at least like wanting to please everyone and feel like I was, you know, making everyone proud or whatever. And if I would have just put it away, it would have been a lot better. Because then I would have understood like what was important to me in my daily activities that brought the best out in me, and other people's opinions. That's actually a thing. Like, I mean, everyone's heard of FOMO. Like FOPO is another thing, fear of other people's opinions. It's a real thing. Like,
yeah.
You know what I mean?
It's a new term I've learned, but I believe it.
Yeah. And so, you know, when we're looking at social media, is it helpful for your daily life? Like, like hearing what is going on in the world helpful? And one of the biggest tenets of mental skills is controlling what you can control, and understanding how you want to respect the moment and the virus, and what are the ways you can control that. Is it wearing a mask when you go out? Cool. Like you that's all you can do, right? Staying at home when you're supposed to. You know, do the distancing, you know, I mean, being supportive of other people. That's all you can control. You can't control what's going on anywhere else. And that's a big hook for guys trying to control things they have absolutely no control over. It's like, you know, we think, you know, I would talk, sorry if I'm rambling too much, but this is a big one for me.
Yeah, go right ahead.
Like, I think we have this this manual that we want other people to live by, but we often don't tell them what's in our manual. You know, like, you're supposed to do this, you're supposed to behave like this, and when people don't, you get mad. And it's like, well, you didn't tell them how you wanted them to act.
Yeah.
Yeah, you didn't read my manual. Like, I didn't even read how you wanted me to be. And I'll tell you, no one, you can't control anyone. People are going to do what they want to do. And so letting go of that is probably the most powerful thing we can do, is like, yeah, like knowing that people are just going to do weird stuff all the time, and it's totally out of your control. Yeah.
I love that. I think that is something I will definitely take to heart, because it is hard to give up that control. So thanks for sharing that. We have a question from Kathy. Why did you get into the mental side of baseball? What was your motivation?
My own suffering.
Fair enough.
Yeah, it was. Like I thought my dreams were gonna make me this invincible person or something, like, by accomplishing my dreams. And it turns out I had no clue as to who I was and why those things were so important to me. And because I didn't have a strong sense of who I was and why I wanted to play baseball, besides I just wanted to like prove everyone wrong, it was just a miserable existence, you know. And it took me 5 years working in the middle of Alaska as a fishing guide to sort of wake up and go, man, other people probably suffer too. And it's not about me anymore. Like, it's about other people. And it's been like, doing this job has been the happiest I've ever been in my life. You know, it's been better than beating the Yankees. Like, honestly,
is that because you're helping others, or what's that? Why is the reasoning? What's the reasoning for that?
Yeah, because there's so much more. There's such the feeling that you get when you can help someone else achieve their dreams, or see things in a different way, or realize something that will really help change or shape their life in a different direction, a direction of positivity or happiness or whatever, is so much better than throwing a fastball, or striking out Derek Jeter. Not that I ever did that, but it's so much better, And I wouldn't have known that until I did this, but it's incredible.
That's great. In that same vein, so you can help us at home. What small steps can we take at home to build mindfulness and create space, as you were discussing earlier? I know you mentioned meditation. What steps can we take toward, starting out meditation and anything we can do in our day-to-day life that would help strengthen mindfulness?
Gratitude is one of the more powerful things that you could practice. Listen, I never tell guys to write in a journal. I really don't, but I think it's one of the more impactful things you can do.
Absolutely.
So it's like, I have told guys that I'm really close with, right, that I know will do it, but like, I can't just tell anybody to go start journaling. They're gonna look at me like I'm crazy. But like right here, I've got the 5-minute journal.
Yes.
It's just waking up and writing in there every morning something that you're looking forward to today. And sometimes it's just one thing, eating a good meal or something, or exercising or something.
Yeah.
It's just, and then at night, what went well today, or what did you really appreciate today, or what happened today that you were like, wow, that was really great, that you may have glossed over, so I think that's a really impactful thing to do. And breathing, like taking 5 minutes to breathe. Honestly, I know that's ridiculous sounding, but like the perfect breath is one that isn't seen, right? And being one, just like taking a nice diaphragmatic breath and doing that for like 2 minutes and being aware of your breath, and like how much it's intoxicating if you do it right. And then of course meditating.
All right. I definitely want to focus on my breathing, so I'll be practicing that. I know I'm no expert quite yet, but I know you mentioned that Brene Brown is a source that you love. Are there any other books about mindfulness, or really anything that you've touched on? Positivity, creating space, any sort of other skills or tools that you've discussed? Any other books or resources that have been something you'd recommend other than Brene Brown?
Yeah. Mark Nepo is a really amazing author. He's been recognized everywhere as being like just super powerful words.
Okay.
He's got a ton of books. I'm terrible remembering names of books, but Mark Nepo, Nepo.
Okay.
I'm a big podcast guy. The Courageous Life is my favorite podcast. He's got probably like 50 episodes, and speaks a lot about what we're talking about here: curiosity and mindfulness, and building a life worth living. Like a lot of topics like that. And then meditation apps, I'm on 10% Happier is an amazing one that I use frequently, and then Insight Timer.
Okay. Great. All right. We have, I think, one more question before we wrap up. But you touched on this lightly, and I think this question we can apply to almost anybody, but how does mindfulness help specifically a baseball player on a field?
Yeah, that's a good one. It's, I cannot think of anything more important than being mindful of something, because when you're mindful of something, you're not distracted by everything else. And so when you have a plan and your plan is to, if you're a pitcher, to throw a fastball away for a strike, and you start thinking about, well, what if I don't throw it? What if I leave it over the middle of the plate? What if I should be throwing a curveball right here? It's not going to be good for you. So accessing the best version of yourself comes from being mindful of something before you do the action. So mindful actions for what we do is like taking a breath. Like if you're mindful of your breath, then you're not thinking about the other stuff.
Right.
Yeah. So, I mean, it's a lot of guys do different things. Like some guys will just look out into space. Some guys have a mantra, something that they say to themselves all the time. Any way to access the present moment before the action is invaluable, because then you get into that state of flow, and that the first step to flow is being mindful about something.
Great. All right. I love that answer. I think we all need some flow in our life, so this is good.
Yeah.
But I think that is all the time we have now for our questions. So Adam, thank you so much for your time. We greatly appreciate it. I know the tools and skills and resources that you shared with us today will be very helpful for me, as I'm sure the majority of the audience today as well. So thank you so much. And then to our audience, thank you so much for coming today and for tuning in. And also a very warm thank you to those who kindly donated to the For Mom charity campaign, which I know is near and dear to both Adam and the Mariners team's hearts after the loss of Braden Bishop's mother. So thank you so much. Very timely for Mother's Day as well. So thank you, Adam, so much. And I hope that all of you stay safe and healthy during this time.
Yeah. Thank you, Zoe.
Of course. Have a good evening, everybody.